What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
4 Ya. Chapter 52 The Game of Stripping Clothes. Advertise here. At this time, a heavy rain of gravel began to fall at Qingrumen, located to the east of Seraiti. The guard's huge wrists, a giant that looked even more ferocious than Si Danfang, lay quietly aside, falling into a baby-like sleep. Not far away, the residents of Rukongai felt that the ground was no longer shaking, and they did not dare to peek out. They huddled up with their heads in their hands, shivering, as if there was a horror comparable to the end of the world outside their houses. So as I said, the road is made by people. If others can do it, why can't I? Natsuki flicked his wrist, and the slight tingling quickly disappeared. Nailu looked at the door that was blown away. The huge portal was too closely integrated with the walls on both sides, causing the walls on both sides to suffer serious damage the moment the door was blasted open. The gap is too big, even if you try to find the door again, it will be useless. Are we really here to find someone? Seeing this situation, Nailu couldn't help but have self-doubt. If they don't agree with each other, they knock down the guard and blow open the door. Moreover, he is still an Erankar evolved from Manos Grande. I'm afraid no one would believe him if he said he wasn't here to start a war. Picaro, now let me explain the content of the game. Natsuki turned to look at the children on the side. The Picaros who were abducted on the pretext of playing games were in high spirits. They just liked playing. They had no concept of overall 25 inches in their minds. They did whatever they thought of. Their innocence and simplicity were vividly reflected in them. But as Shu, while possessing great power, he is bound to be affected by instinctive impulses. Unlike other Arankars, Picaro never suppresses this urge. Therefore, they are like a ticking time bomb, now being brought to Soul Society by Natsuki to detonate it. There are some people here wearing white clothes with numbers on the back. Let's compete to see who can get more white clothes from these figures. If you win, I'll treat you to Neon's most delicious ice cream. Natsuki said leisurely. What is ice cream? A little girl wearing glasses, Picaro, licked her fingers in her mouth with a curious look on her face. A food that is cold, sweet, soft, and melts in your mouth. Natsuki only used a few simple and easy to understand terms to arouse the appetite of the Picaros. They were already interested in playing games, and now the two joys overlapped. There's nothing to say, just rush and that's it. If Shinigami had been present at this time, he would have been stunned. Hundreds of black cracks opened one after another, filling the sky above Rukongai. Children, beasts, aliens. There are more than 600 different Arankars, but they belong to the same group, flying out of the black cavity and marching towards the interior of Seraiti. I really can't explain it now. Nelu muttered. In the eyes of uninformed outsiders, this is more than 600 Manos Grande running to the base camp, Captain Shiwan. Although it was just to pull off the clothes, it was enough to touch Shinigami's sensitive nerves. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, Erankar was born to fight Soul Society. If it's earlier or later, it shouldn't affect Lord Eisen's plan, right? Just as Nailu thought, there was a turmoil within the Technology Development Bureau of Division 12. A large group of strange Reiatsu, who are almost hollows but not quite hollows, flocked to Seraiti. The alarm was almost going off. I didn't come up with any good ideas. Kuretsuchi Mayuri was not in the Technology Development Bureau. He took his deputy captain and went to clean up the travel accident according to the arrangement of the captain. Ichigo, Renji vs. Byakuya, Toshiro. As for him, he is more interested in Team Ishida. To be precise, he saw the research value of Quincy and Fullbringers. The alarm sound that spread throughout the court was certainly very concerning. But it is absolutely impossible for Kuretsuchi Mayuri to give up the meat in her mouth. When he was about to sneak attack Ishida, an unexpected person appears and intervenes. Kuretsuchi Mayuri was so angry that she flew into a rage. Although I have underestimated your IQ, I found that I was still wrong. You do not have the most basic intelligence as a human being. When you were defeated, I should have gone my own way and sent you to my test bed. Don't worry, you can do this now. Am I not giving you the best excuse? You should thank me. Zaraki Kenpachi, who was supposed to be lying in the Comprehensive Treatment Center, made it clear that he would side with the travel disaster and become the enemy of Soul Society. However, both warring parties knew very well that this person was simply here to disrupt the situation, in order to provoke a bigger conflict. Conflict, fight with more people. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This is what Kuretsuchi Mayuri hates the most. For profit, for friendship. Although the concepts are contradictory, it is not incomprehensible. The madness of fighting purely for the sake of fighting regardless of the overall situation and one's own responsibilities is the most stupid and worthless in the eyes of scientists. But it can cause a lot of trouble to people. I wish I could get rid of it quickly. As you wish, I will kill you right now. With that said, he activated Bankai. The golden baby-faced worm filled with poisonous gas and covered with blades was like a mountain crushing towards Kenpachi. Not only did Kenpachi not have any fear, he was even laughing wildly. It would be a blessing for Gote 13 to die here like an unfed beast. On the other side, Tusen Kanami and Komamura Sajin teamed up to escort Rukia up the mountain. During this period, Although the former was blind, he could still judge roughly what happened from Podong and Reiatsu, and couldn't help but tell the truth. Although that guy Zaraki doesn't want to admit it, he is also the captain of the 11th Division, and he actually beat up his comrades. I really don't know what he is thinking. Komamura's voice sounded particularly dull through the helmet. Nirvana is no match for him. I want to help. I can't let this scourge live any longer. Tusen Konami is murderous. Komamura echoed. I'll go too. 3 people together can't deal with an injured Zaraki Kenpachi. That only shows that he does have the necessity to continue to exist as the captain of the 11th Squadron. Rukia's expression on the side was pale and she couldn't say a word. Her original idea of exchanging her last wish for Ichigo and the others to leave safely had long since been shattered. Master Kido pushed her slightly roughly and walked onto the execution platform with shaky steps. There are still more than 2 hours left before the execution time. This shows that the delay plan formulated by Yi and Ichigo basically went bankrupt. Don't say it's delayed until after 12 o'clock. It almost failed to stop it. The 7 vice captains alone were able to hold off Team Ishida. It is quite surprising that the latter can fight the former in a stalemate, otherwise Kuretsuchi Mayuri would not think of a sneak attack. The double 370 pole spears stand proudly. Directly below it, Old Man Sean led a group of people to sit here. Never mind those Kido scholars. After losing its chief and deputy leaders 100 years ago, it fell into despair and became a vassal of Gote 13. Its status is far inferior to stealth maneuver, and there is no comparison at all. The 3 captains are the most conspicuous. They are Soi Fon from the 2nd team, Unohana Retsu from the 4th team, and Eisen from the 5th team. Counting Byakuya, Toshiro, and Kuretsuchi Mayuri who have already entered the battle, and Tusen and Komamura who are about to come down to join the battle. A total of 8 captains took part in the battle. The lineup is nothing short of luxurious. Although he did not expect Kenpachi to betray him temporarily, it did not affect Old Man Sean's determination to carry out the execution to the end. It's time to begin. Old Man Sean opened his eyes slightly. The old and powerful voice is the expression of the order that Soul Society has established over the past 2,000 years. There is no doubt about it. No provocation allowed. Authority is greater than anything else. Rules trump everything. The Kido soldiers obeyed the order, untied the collar around Rukia's neck, and activated the technique to release the bipolar spear. The Yan Yu Dao was magnified thousands of times to break free from the seal. White ropes are scattered around the bipolar hill, like long pillars sinking into the earth, to stabilize the bipolar spear and further adjust its spearhead to aim at the prisoner who was gradually rising to the top of the torture frame. Torrential fire swept through the spear body, melted the crust. With a sharp cry, the fire phoenix broke out of its shell and soared into the sky. This is the true form of the bipolar spear, the King of Shell Destroyers. Chapter 53 Reinforcements have arrived. Advertise here. At this moment, all the combatants near Shuangji Hill stopped and looked up involuntarily. Even if you can't see the soaring fire phoenix, you can still feel the unusual Reiatsu. Heat waves rolled down, burn up the clouds in the sky. How is that possible? Didn't we agree to do it at 12 o'clock? Entering the Bankai state, Ichigo, who was fighting fiercely with Byakuya, was mentally shattered by this incident and almost lost control of his emotions. This is a lie. A huge tide of sakura flowers surged around Byakuya, but against this gorgeous and elegant background, the words he spoke were so cold and biting, dragging people into bottomless despair. I remember I said that this was the captain's arrangement, to lure you out and annihilate them in one fell swoop. The execution is indeed brought forward, but when to execute is decided by the captain. Room 46 has no mandatory requirements for this. The moment Rukia was sent up the mountain, you lost your last chance. Even if you miraculously master Bankai, it will not help. This miraculous power is too small. It is as thin as the Zanpakuto in your hand and can be broken easily. All you can do is fight with me. Run with all your strength. Similar exchanges also took place between Toshiro and Renji. But compared to Ichigo, Renji's condition is even worse. He also mastered Bankai, but due to a serious lack of proficiency, and Toshiro used Bankai to confront Bankai head-on, slowly wearing down his determination with his spirit and attributes. If Renji hadn't been tenacious enough, he would have been defeated long ago. Both of them wanted to abandon their opponents at all costs and rush to the top of the mountain to prevent the execution, but Byakuya and Toshiro had already discovered their intentions and stopped them. Any step forward would be disrespectful to their reputation as geniuses. Team Ishida is also having a hard time fighting. Some were injured and some left. Extremely anxious. Can't get away at all. Not to mention Kenpachi, he is not here to save people at all. There are only 3 opponents in sight. Kuretsuchi Mayuri, Tusen Konami, and Komamura Sajin. When Kenpachi was enjoying himself, he suddenly felt something was wrong. Hold head high. With doubts, he looked up. He met a large number of eyes full of joy, as if he had discovered food. What are you? Really? Does the ape fish for the moon? No, I swore an oath to rescue Rukia. Unprecedented despair enveloped Renji's heart, and he began to desperately improve Reiatsu. Even if his soul died, he still had a chance to break the blockade. Stop. Abarai. Toshiro saw what he wanted to do and was shocked and angry. After all, he is one of his own, and everything he does is excusable. It doesn't matter if he doesn't agree with it, but Toshiro can't afford to hate such people. The little man is right, just lie down. With a cold and irritable voice, Renji was kicked from behind and fell to the ground. While vomiting blood, King of Baboons Zabumaru was also forced to release and enter the sealed state. Proving that Renji has indeed reached his limit. If it continues to develop, it will not only be physical exhaustion and spiritual exhaustion, but also death. Who is it? Renji struggled to get up, but was gently touched by someone and had a mouth full of mud again. He reluctantly raised his head to see who was attacking him. However, what caught his eye was a face he had never seen before. However, the strange Reiatsu and the broken mask brought a great psychological impact to him and Toshiro. After Toshiro was shocked, his face quickly sank, and he clenched Zanpakuto with both hands. The ice dragon wings on his back spread again, and he was ready to flutter his wings and rush forward. Speaking of which, there was an alarm just now about a suspected virtual intruder, so is it you? Neutra tilted his head and snorted at Donglang. Do you think I will just chat with you? If you want to know something, just come and knock me down. Then I will tell you everything you want to know. I guess so. Toshiro narrowed his eyes noncommittally, but his heart gradually sank to the bottom. Humanoid, possessing rationality, and holding weapons. Sure enough, there was a big problem with this execution. But no matter what, I can only bite the bullet. With this in mind, Toshiro decisively struck preemptively. Slashing violently with a blade wrapped in a lot of cold air. It can freeze everything it touches and then shatter it. This is why Renji is helpless. But Neutra is different. The giant scythe came forward, and his entire arm was completely frozen, but instead he showed a sneer, swung his arm like a normal person, used brute force to break free of the ice, and then struck back. The power contained in this blow gave Toshiro a new understanding of thinness. Such thin arms can not only wield huge weapons, but also have the strength to move the world. This single blow caused Toshiro to fly backwards and smash into the mountain of Shuangji Hill. So strong. Renji was stunned. Captain Hitsugaya, who had suppressed him so hard, couldn't even sustain a move. But Neutra was not satisfied. The injury has not fully recovered. His arms were also a little numb from the cold, otherwise he felt that he could use his body to resist, and then kill the opponent with a backhand knife. Just stay still. Someone has already done what you want to do. Neutra said casually. Without looking back, he dragged his sickle towards the direction of Duo. Someone went there. Who was it? Ichigo. Renji regained his energy, turned over with difficulty, and looked at the sky that was a little muddy and distorted by the vibrations and heat waves. As long as Rukia can be rescued. On the other side, the battlefield where Ishida's team is located. It has shifted significantly from its initial position. No way. The battle between Kenpachi and others was too noisy, forcing them, the weak ones, to stay away from the danger zone while fighting. Is that the end? Ishida took a deep breath. What prompted him to say these words was not only the Fire Phoenix flying on the Shuangji Hill, but also the chief officers of each division who came to support him. What a good calculation. Knowing that the chief officer level Shinigami was no match for them, they first let the vice captains fight with him, and then sent a reserve army composed of chief officers to assist in the battle depending on the situation. The weak Ishida had long since lost its ability to fight and was protected by Orihime, making it basically useless. However, Ishida and Sato relied on their unexpected tacit cooperation to defeat several vice captains. Currently, they are only shooting ranges and Hisa. Wood, Rangaku, Hinamori Momo are still standing. Yongyan, Omaeda, and Kira are no longer able to fight anymore. Even the vice captains did not expect that this battle would be so difficult. Fortunately, the appearance of the chief officials was the last straw that broke the camel's back. The team is led by Chojiro Sasaki, the deputy captain of the 1st Division who was deeply trusted by the captain. Sato, I will create a chance for you later. You have the opportunity to lead Inoue and Rock Eagle out of the encirclement. Since the rescue plan failed, it is time to consider retreat. Ishida pushed up her glasses and whispered. Do you want to stay and break up the marriage? Sato asked rhetorically. Don't worry, it's not the kind of death move you think, but the trump card that I have kept until now. Ishida made it clear in advance. Sato breathed a sigh of relief. That's okay. I understand. I still have some strength. I can help you at any time after I go out. Just when Ishida was about to take off the spirit dispersing gloves, suddenly a figure. No, it was 3 figures falling from the sky, bringing up a strong wind, which made everyone unable to open their eyes. Excuse me. I found it. Nelu looked around, and was about to ask who knew where Miss Inoue Orihime was, when she saw the orange-haired girl hiding behind Ishida and Sato. I was immediately happy, dragging Pei Shui's feet with one hand. One hand held Dongchaka's hand. He hurriedly ran to Orihime and grabbed her people. You are Orihime, right? Natsuki told me about your appearance. Although it is not polite to ask for it when we first meet, I still want to ask you to help me heal 2 of my friends. Orihime, who was a little confused by her, immediately came to his senses when he heard the name, Natsuki. Do you know Mr. Shaw? Ishida and Sato looked at each other, catching the joy in each other's eyes. It has been difficult for so long, and finally things are turning around. I came with him, and he asked me to come to you, saying that you might be able to cure my friend. Nailu briefly explained the situation. I see. The three understood. But I'm afraid that's not possible now. As you can see, we are preparing to break out. Let's talk about the treatment later. Ishida looked at Shinigami, who was slowly approaching with a solemn expression. You mean them? It doesn't matter. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Nodes. Nailu looked calm. As he spoke, he pulled out the Zanpakuto from his waist. Who are you? Hisagi asked loudly. The sweat on his forehead couldn't stop flowing out, but even if it flowed into his eyes, he didn't dare to blink, because he felt that as long as he blinked, this mysterious man would kill all the Shinigami, including himself, in that instant. Hisagi is not the only one with keen senses. Rangaku, Hinamori Momo, and Shooting Area all had tense faces, and their pupils continued to shrink. Leave here, I don't want to hurt you. Nailu advised him bluntly. Get it clear, this is Seraiti, and you, a man wearing a strange mask, came here to ask us to leave. Don't you think there's anything wrong? Shooting Range forced the courage to retort. Although he was tough on the outside but soft on the inside, he did speak out the inner thoughts of all the Shinigami present. They are not ordinary soldiers. As an elite at the chief officer level, who wouldn't be arrogant? I never thought that one day I would be so frightened by the other person's words that I would run away without a fight. Soul Society is indeed different from Hueco Mundo. In that case. Nailu sighed helplessly, and then her expression became solemn. Then I won't be polite. Accompanied by words, Reiatsu, worthy of the Vasto Lord class Manos Grande, broke out completely. It perfectly explains what it is like to have the power of millions of Manos Grande gathered into one person. Chapter 54 Garp in this world, serving with an iron fist. Advertise here. The Hill of Bipolar. Old man Sean stared into the distance. Sure enough, as I expected, early execution will force these restless brats to surface in one breath. Now is not the time to say such things, right, Captain? Unohana Retsu spoke in a soft voice, with a dignified and virtuous appearance like Yamato Nadeshiko. She didn't seem to be aggressive at all, but when she spoke, there was always a hidden meaning behind her words, which made the person being lectured involuntarily shudder. Although I don't recognize that Reiatsu, it's far beyond the limit that the team members can handle. I think it's better to make plans early. It's still too tactful to put it. When everyone present heard this, the first thing they thought of was this. Not only is it beyond the capabilities of the team members. I'm afraid it won't be a good thing if the captain goes. If the opponent really has an inevitable connection with Shu, then he must follow the textbook and adopt the same attitude as before against Manos Grande, selecting multiple captains based on the strength debt shown by the opponent. Join forces to encircle and suppress. It would definitely be fine to do this in normal times. But right now, most of the captains can't free their hands. The only good thing is that these newcomers chose to divide their forces into 3 groups, looking for Hitsugaya, Tusen, Komamura, Kuritsuchi Mayuri, and Kanpachi. Since 100 is the captain, the battlefield is also close. Don't worry about it yet. We can save you at any time. What we need to worry about now is the battlefield that is farthest away and has no captain to take care of. Especially the enemies we encounter are extremely powerful, which makes people feel thrilling even from a distance. It is conceivable that the deputy captains and chief officers are. How much pressure to bear? It is not an exaggeration to say that he is walking on the edge of life and death. Jashiro aside, where are Shunsui and Ichimaru now? Old man Sean thought of those who were not present. Captain Kyoban should be sitting in the first team building, Captain Ichimaru is currently missing. Sui Fon summoned a criminal soldier to whisper a few words and quickly reported the report. It just happened to disappear at this time, that guy Ichimaru. Eisen looked worried, and then couldn't help but ask for help. Your Excellency, Captain, please let me support the deputy captains. With my Zanpakuto ability, even if I lose, I can delay it for a while. I'll go too. Sui Fon is not to be outdone. The 2 captains go together and use mobility and illusion to deal with such a powerful enemy. As Eisen said, even if they are defeated, they will not be defeated easily. Old man Sean suddenly changed his mind and was about to agree. Suddenly, it felt like an electric current rushed through my spine. The 4 people suddenly raised their heads and looked towards the sky. The heat wave emitted by the King of Shell destroyers burned away the clouds, and the sunlight in the sky was extremely dazzling, causing him to squint his eyes and scan the sky with sharp eyes, but there was nothing except the atmosphere. Even so, they are also extremely sure that something is coming. Bah! The fire phoenix spread its wings and stared coldly at the small figure on the execution rack. Then it immediately raised its head and pointed its beak at the mountain-like body of the prey that needed to be killed and moved forward. No more effort required. Just like a human walking. Trampling an ant to death and crushing a grain of dust are all normal things. Rukia slowly closed her eyes and waited for death to come. But her heart was anything but peaceful. Fighting is raging on all sides of Bipolar Hill, as if a large-scale war has been launched around her existence. The familiar Reiatsu is like boiling water, fluctuating violently. If you close your eyes, you can imagine them trying their best to fight with blood. Khan's gesture was just to get a little closer to her. Hug, I'm sorry, everyone, I hope that my death will make you give up and return to your world smoothly. Tears containing endless thoughts slipped quietly from the corners of his eyes. It evaporated before it even hit the ground. It seems to indicate that everything you think about is useless. The heat wave is approaching. The sharp beak is about to touch and penetrate Rukia's body. Suddenly, a sharp explosion sounded. The ripple-like sonic boom clouds on the water surface are surrounded by circles, from large to small. The speed of compression and convergence to the extreme seems to break the limitations of space and completely disappear from the material world. When it appears again, perhaps when he was blocking the exit, he couldn't stop the car. Huafeng suffered an unprecedented blow. A fist. A swinging punch with a relatively exaggerated range of motion. It was like a knife was struck on the head, hitting the top of the spear, forcibly changing the thrust trajectory of the spear, causing it to stab downwards uncontrollably. The Fire Phoenix is probably the same. In the pirate world next door, such a punch can turn a person's head from a pointed head to a flat head. And it's even more miserable. From the neck up, the entire head was blown apart. Countless sparks spattered and landed on various places above and below the bipolar hill, like meteors and meteorites, and some even caused fires in the forest below. Everyone present could not help but open their eyes wide when they saw this scene. The bipolar tip is said to have the destructive power of 1,000,000 Zanpakuto, and it was defeated like this. Who is it? Sui Fon muttered to himself. His face was full of shock. After reacting, he quickly searched for traces of the saboteur. They had long sensed that something was approaching, but they didn't expect it to appear in such an exaggerated way. No need to go out of your way to find it. Soon, everyone discovered that there was an extra person on the top of the execution rack. He stood so openly behind Rukia's head, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't see him. However, when Old Man Sean and others saw clearly the appearance of the visitor, they all showed expressions of surprise and uncertainty. Quote? That person. How could such a thing happen? On the execution rack 100 meters above the ground, Rukia opened her eyes blankly and saw the embarrassed Huafeng who had lost his head and was trying to reshape his body. She couldn't help but feel confused. What happened? At this time, she heard a voice coming from her head. I said I wouldn't mind helping out if I had the chance, but I didn't expect that it would be my turn to take action at such a critical time. Now Kurosaki owes me a huge favor. You might as well give him a reference. How can you repay me appropriately? Natsuki crossed his arms and stood on the horizontal pillar facing the wind. He looked around at the surrounding scenery with a relaxed expression. Even the battlefield where Ishida's team was the farthest away could be clearly seen from this height. Not to mention other people, everything is visible. This feeling is hard not to feel comfortable both physically and mentally. Any depression will disappear in this vast field of vision. You were the human who killed Manos Grande that day. I remember you were Ichigo's classmate. I think it was called a comeback. Rukia tried her best to raise her head. Although she still couldn't see her face clearly, she remembered the Reiatsu on Natsuki, so the first thing she thought of was what happened on the day Manos Grande invaded the world, so as to determine Natsuki's identity. Yes, it's me. Kurosaki told me everything. Although I'm not here to save you, my work has been done, so it's okay to help you. Natsuki is blunt. Chapter 55. Goodbye with B. Advertise here. Rukia obviously cannot accept this statement. As a sinner, she is unwilling to involve more unrelated people. I appreciate your kindness, but you'd better leave quickly and ask Ichigo and the others to leave together. The sooner the better. The power of Gote 13 is far beyond your imagination. They just don't know much about your situation for the time being. Once they figure out your abilities and characteristics, they won't even be able to escape. So don't take risks for me anymore. Leave quickly. Listening to her sincere persuasion, Natsuki acted very calmly and turned a deaf ear. There is a saying that, it's all come. Even if we really fail in the end, we have to wait until they take you back and then they take you back and liquidate them together. If I really listen to you, in the future, not only will you not earn any favors, but you will also be complained about. Isn't it clear at a glance which one is more serious? Is this how the word, more important or less important, is used? Rukia was stunned. I have an initial impression of this young man who has never spoken before. He seems to be quite cold. In fact, he is very shameless. It doesn't seem like he just follows his temper. In short, he has his own set of weird actions. Logic. But, at this time, Natsuki made a faint sound again. His tone sounded a bit sarcastic, but also like he was gloating about his misfortune. I quite agree with your views on Gote 13. It is indeed an extremely powerful force. It would be easier if we could dig a few over. Rukia didn't quite understand why he said that suddenly. There was no time to delve into it. Because the Fire Phoenix recondensed its head, it acted particularly angry, its cry pierced the sky, and its heat wave filled the surging and powerful Reiatsu. Compared to just now, it is not only 10 times, but 50 times stronger. The destruction of 1,000,000 Zanpakuto is no joke. Take Vasto Lord for example. Each Vasto Lord is a collection of millions of Manos Grande, hundreds of millions of humanoid disasters. Even the Soul Society dare not kill them at will. One bad one will cause an imbalance in the souls of the three realms. Although the consequences of the destruction of King of Shell Destroyers will not be like this, but if it acts in earnest, Vasto Lord will be eclipsed. But Huo Feng is destined to be unable to take revenge. While it was accumulating power, two figures arrived belatedly. Oh, I barely managed to catch up. Stop talking nonsense, Kiraku. The sudden appearance of Jashiro and Kyori caught everyone on the ground by surprise. They were not here to support, but came to destroy the two poles with the Shihuan family's spiritual tools. Before Mr. San and the others could react, Jashiro and Kyoryu worked together to activate the spiritual tools, wrapping the rope around the Fire Phoenix's neck, and Reiatsu electrified it, shattering its form, and even the spear body of the Yanyu sword was forcibly broken. History, which had gradually deviated, is back on track again. Old Man Shan, Yunohana Retsu, and Sui Fon looked at this scene in shock. Only Eisen pushed up his glasses, crossed his hands and put them in his cuffs, looking very calm. The lenses reflected light, hiding the changes in his eyes. No one knows what he is thinking at this moment. No one will pay attention to him. Jashiro and Jingraku are two smart people who are now the center of attention. Old Man Shan took a deep breath and opened his eyes completely. The eyes that had seen the changes over the years contained immeasurable wisdom and endless anger. Kiraku, Jashiro, you guys. Before Sui Feng could question him, he was interrupted by Old Man Shan. It's useless to ask. If you dare to do such a thing in front of me, you must be aware of it accordingly. Old Man Shan, Teacher Yuan Lujai. Kiraku couldn't laugh, and Jashiro's face was heavy. They don't deliberately go against their teachers. But Yoruichi was right. There is a problem with this incident, and if it continues to develop, it may not be a problem for a while, but if the buried thunder is not dug out, sooner or later it will turn into a disaster that can destroy the entire Soul Society. Instead of doing that, you might as well take this opportunity to dig it out. Even if there are countless controversies involved in doing this, he may die as a sinner in the end, and the thunder he laid is still there. But for Gote 13 and for the justice in his mind, there are some things that he has to do. I'm sorry, Mr. Shan. How about putting the execution on hold for a while? I have asked Naneo to accompany Yoruichi to investigate. With their abilities, I believe there will be results soon. How about? Kyoryu also wanted to try to convince Old Man Shan, but before he could finish his words, Old Man Shan interrupted him again. No matter how much you say, it's meaningless. From the moment you stood on the opposite side of Gote 13, what you did. What you do can only be considered a Eisen. Although you have different personalities, you each have your own strengths. You are destined to shine and take on big responsibilities. To me, you are both disciples and sons. I value you very much. So, let me deal with your crimes myself. Please give me flowers. Draw your sword. Let me see how much you have improved over the years. It wasn't just words this time. There are also practical actions. The wooden appearance of the crutch held by Old Man Shan's hand faded from top to bottom, revealing a simple and unpretentious sealed state. Captain Howry slipped from his shoulders. The burly body covered with large and small scars is displayed in front of people, which brings a strong spiritual shock to people. Reiatsu, who belongs to the total captain, explodes at this moment. The fire phoenix fell, but as the old man drew his sword out of its sheath, a hotter breath spread in the bipolar hill. Everyone, please step aside. The Kido warriors scattered like birds and beasts, wishing they had two more legs. Yunohana Retsu sighed quietly and was about to leave, but he heard a roar, indicating that the execution frame was interrupted. Natsuki held Rukia's belt and ducked to Yunohana Retsu's side. I'd better leave this guy to your custody for the time being. With that said, he placed the confused Rukia at Yunohana Retsu's feet. Natsuki glanced at Eisen not far away. The latter looked a little surprised, but there was no authenticity in the surprise shown in a harmless manner. Is this okay? You rescued her, but you handed her over to the care of the person who wanted to execute her. Yunohana Retsu stared at Natsuki's face without blinking. Rukia herself was stunned by Natsuki's operation. If you don't solve the problem and just take people to escape, it will only make things worse. Natsuki turned his attention to the old man Shan who was confronting Jashiro and Kiraku. His tone was calm, as if he had seen through everything. Furthermore, I can hand people over to you, and I can also take people back from you. That's really shameless. Sui Feng's expression was cold, and she put her hand on the handle of the knife behind her waist, arched her waist slightly, and slowly approached step by step. The heat in the air became bone-chilling after she walked past. I will make sure you never say such arrogant words again. Seeing this, Yunohana Retsu shook her head slightly, and the Zanpakuto on her waist turned into a ray of light that spread on the ground, and then turned into a strange creature, carrying her and Rukia into the sky, away from this land that was destined to turn into scorched earth. Battlefield. Natsuki and Sui Feng looked at each other quietly for a while. After the three people on the old man's side liberated Zanpakuto one after another, Natsuki suddenly disappeared and Sui Feng followed closely behind. Chapter 56 Yoruichi is really not my mother. Advertise here. Yunohana Retsu took Rukia to settle disputes in various places. Old Man Shan fought against the two rebels, while Natsuki took Sui Feng and ran all the way. The two of them were running at full speed, covering thousands of meters in an instant. Any rugged terrain is ignored. The steppes in other Shinigami's eyes, in the hands of Natsuki and Soi Fon, are like land flying skills. The number of times a step lands can be counted on one's fingers. One Shunpo seems to be able to cross thousands of rivers and thousands of miles. Although it is a bit exaggerated, the mobility of the two people is indeed extraordinary. He dived into the forest behind the Shuangji Hill, then flew out of the sky from the stone steps leading to the bottom of the mountain. He dropped from the sky, using the woods as the road, as if he was speeding on the green carpet, without even leaving an afterimage. One moment you were on one terrain, and the next second you were on another terrain. Anything, including air, can be used as a stepping stone to gain momentum. The movements of 977 are so nimble and seem to occur without thinking, making people suspect that they have been rehearsed beforehand. Speed, adaptability, proficiency. When each element reaches a certain level and is blended together, it can easily subvert most Shinigami's understanding of Shunpo. I don't know how far I ran. The size of the bipolar hill is only the size of a fist in the field of vision. The surrounding environment has also become very strange. Natsuki stopped on an overpass. The overpass hangs alone, connecting two tall towers. Other than that, they are all normal buildings. Standing on the overpass, you feel like you are on a cliff. A wide field of view means it's difficult to hide your figure. Therefore, when he stopped, Sui Fon was not surprised, but calmly landed on the top of the tower directly opposite Natsuki, as if to prove that he had more room, overlooking. Observing Natsuki's surroundings. Aren't you going to keep running away? 2. Although I don't know where you learned Shunpo from, the last thing you should rely on is Shunpo, because in this soul society, no one can rely on Shunpo to get rid of me. Never before, and never will in the future. Have. I admit that you are somewhat capable, but the more you act like this, the more you will feel the gap between you and me. It is a wise move to stop decisively to conserve your strength. Having said this, Sui Fon paused, then changed his subject and narrowed his beautiful eyes, covering Natsuki with a sharp and cold gaze like a blade, as if he wanted to dissect him to see what shady secrets he hid. So, what's your relationship with Shihouen Yoruichi? Did she teach you your Shunpo? Natsuki looked sideways when he heard this. Yoruichi, do you know her? He pretended to be surprised. This rhetorical question seemed ordinary, but it cut Sui Feng's heart severely, forcing her to face her past memories. Don't change the subject. Hiraku just mentioned Yoruichi. She also came to Soul Society, right? And you also came with her. What is your relationship? Sui Feng's tone was rough. Mother-son relationship. Quote ? Just kidding. Natsuki shrugged. After seeing Yoruichi's appearance, he also realized that he and Yoruichi were not only somewhat similar in appearance, but even somewhat similar in spirit. Taken together, it is difficult to explain it by coincidence. Everyone will immediately think, ah, these two people are related by blood. Only Natsuki knows that he really has no blood relationship with Yoruichi, it is entirely due to a simple coincidence. But this statement cannot be established now. He traveled 1,000 years ago and established a new time and space cycle. If it was originally due to the fusion of Shihouen Sennichi's spirit son, he looks exactly like Shihouen Sennichi, and as Yoruichi is his direct descendant, it is not surprising that he looks similar. But that's different now. He truly replaced Shihouen Senri and became the ancestor of the Shihouen family. Although he died without leaving any blood descendants, there are still other brothers and sisters alive, and they all share the same blood. Natsuki's body was shaped with the blood and spirit seeds of her previous life, and the original blood still flowed in her body. In this way, it's not just a simple similarity in appearance. He also has genuine Shihouen blood. Logically speaking, Natsuki's current body is the child created by him in his previous life. It's hard to say what seniority Shihoun's descendants should be now. We have to look through the family tree to sort it out slowly. But in short, Yoruichi is right to call him grandpa. Mother-son relationship. He dared to shout, but Yoruichi dared to respond. Max. Sui Fon didn't know the inside story. When she heard the word mother and son, her vision suddenly went dark and she almost fell off the top of the tower. I didn't even hear Natsuki's last sentence about me joking. When he came back to his senses, his eyes were red. Who is your father? Is it that bastard Urahara Kazuki? At the same time, Urahara in the current Urahara store suddenly sneezed and said worriedly, everyone must come back safely. Not only did Natsuki not receive blessings from Urahara, but she was speechless when Sui Fon said, Urahara Kazuki. This is not a curse. No, that profiteer will never have children in this life. Also, didn't you hear clearly? I was joking, I am not Yoruichi's biological child, and she is not my mother. Oh, do you think I will believe you when you say that? Sui Fon laughed in anger. She felt like her intelligence had been fooled. Who is she? The dignified captain of the 2nd Division, the commander-in-chief of Secret Mobile, and the commander of the 1st Detachment Penal Army. After decades of hard work, she has taken down countless vicious criminals and cracked countless major cases. She has always said bad things about her behind her back, but she still has to greet them with a smile when they meet her head-on. Sui Feng's instinctive intuition, Yoruichi radar, is desperately shouting, the boy in front of him is definitely related to Yoruichi. Can this be fake 3.0? Ah, Natsuki didn't know how to answer for a moment. After all, there is no doubt that he and Yoruichi have the same bloodline. Forget it, there's no point in talking anymore, wait until I capture you before I capture Yoruichi. Sui Feng's smile was so creepy. If she doesn't stay in this world to care for her husband and raise children, she insists on causing trouble and involves her own son. The price she will pay for this will definitely make her regret it for the rest of her life. It's none of my business what you want to do, but doesn't your family have an ancestral motto of, keep away from anyone named Natsuki? Sui Feng was slightly startled by Natsuki's words and asked subconsciously. How do you know the ancestral teachings of my Feng family? Because, my name is, Natsuki. Chapter 57 Sui Feng is still the same Sui Feng. Advertise here. The wind howled by, taking away the lingering sounds on the overpass. Sui Feng, who was originally hot-headed, gradually cooled down. Although her eyes didn't seem to have changed much and were still as sharp and piercing, she couldn't help but feel a little more hesitant in her heart. How did this person know the ancestral teachings of the Feng family? After all, it is not a serious ancestral teaching. It's more like family rules, the kind that are kept secret. It can be traced back to nearly 1,000 years ago. For Shinigami, who is an immortal species, 1,000 years is neither short nor long. Because, the replacement of nobles in Seraiti is calculated based on generation, and each generation is at least 100 years apart. The 5 great nobles that have existed since ancient times are now the 4 great nobles. Among them, Kuchiki and Shihuin have been passed down to Byakuya and Yoruichi for only 20 generations. One can imagine how long the average reign of each generation of leaders is. But that's an operation that only big nobles can play. Most nobles do not have spiritual qualifications and cannot live for such a long time, even 1 generation per century is considered too many. Fengjia has a little bit of both sides. Although he joined the aristocratic class by relying on the retainers of the Shihuin family, there is no shortage of capable people from generation to generation, and Sui Feng's brothers all have spiritual qualifications. 25 however, because generations have joined stealth maneuver and carried out dangerous missions, resulting in heavy casualties, it has always been difficult to branch out. No matter how long your lifespan is, it will not be enough to squander. The speed of replacement is almost the same as that of ordinary nobles who have no spiritual power and are just waiting to die. It is already the 9th generation that has been passed down to Sui Feng. In other words, the ancestral teachings that have been passed down secretly for thousands of years were left behind even if it was not left by the first generation of the Feng family, but by the next generation of the masters. Only they have the prestige to allow this seemingly inconsistent ancestral teaching to be passed on. Then here comes the problem. Even Lord Yoruichi, Shihuin Yoruichi, and even the entire Shihuin family don't understand the ancestral teachings. How does this person in front of me know? Could it be? I see. Sui Feng's face was gloomy. Natsuki saw her unwillingness and found it very interesting. She said it casually at first, but she didn't expect B. Lotus Flower to actually listen to it. No wonder. Natsuki still remembers how moved she was when he taught her, Shuhuin. She swore on the spot that the Hei family would always be loyal to the head of the Shihuin family. In that case, she would do it no matter what he said, no matter what the consequences. It doesn't matter how much pressure there is. After all, she was just serving her master. Thinking of this, Natsuki couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If I had known she was so serious, I should have created a token so that the descendants of B. Lianhua could see that the token obeyed the owner's instructions unconditionally, otherwise Sui Feng's policy could be reversed. How to use the reverse strategy is another matter. Yes and no are the same thing. Yes, but not using it, that's another story. But Natsuki has no regrets. The reason why Yoruichi is able to marry and have children is because of his name, right? Sui Feng used his years of accumulated investigative experience to quickly clarify the truth of the matter and was convinced of it. The name, Natsuki, has been passed down from generation to generation in your family. First generation. Natsuki had a grudge against my ancestors of the B family, but my ancestors of the B family lost, so I left behind this ancestral precept. Not only that, the price of losing will be repaid by the loyal master, the head of the Shihuin family. This is how your father blackmailed Yoruichi into submission. Although it is not rigorous enough and there are many details that deserve to be refined and improved, it sounds inexplicably making people feel as if this is the case. Natsuki was stunned. Sui Feng is indeed Sui Feng, Yoruichi's little crush. No matter how much resentment and anger you hold in your heart. If something really happens, he will subconsciously help Yoruichi clear his name. Even if his fictional father and Yoruichi were actually in love, Sui Feng would only feel that Yoruichi was forced to do so if he knew about it. Any ancestral conflicts are nonsense. Sui Feng's core logic, in the final analysis, is that she still doesn't want to believe that Yoruichi is married and has children, so she believes in finding ways to excuse her, so that at least Sui Feng can feel better and at the same time be able to deal with the anger that comes from nowhere. Blame it on the unfortunate guy who bullied Yoruichi. With the blessing of our ancestors, in my generation, Sui Feng, I actually have the opportunity to wash away the shame of my ancestors. Sui Feng slowly pulled out the Zanpakuto without even calling out the solution. The blade had already transformed into a Shikai form. The golden and black arm armor was integrated into a single finger sheath. Compared with the Zanpakuto, it was more conducive to the performance of white hits. In other words, when her liberation of Zanpakuto meant that she had decided to take action. Good guy. This set of nonsense logic actually has such a magical effect. In this way, you can not only disobey the ancestral precepts, but also eliminate the suspicion of deceiving the master and destroying the ancestors. You can also put gold on your face and hold the righteousness tightly in your hands. Natsuki was impressed by Soi Fon. He was convinced that this woman was quite stupid, but being stupid didn't mean she wasn't smart, but she didn't need to deliberately use her wits. Most of the time, she just relied on intuition. To be precise, she could make the right choice with her natural political sense. After 9 generations of the Feng family, a man of his own finally emerged. However, this talented person now wants to repay kindness with hatred. It seems that I have to let you understand how kind-hearted the person who forced your ancestors to leave this ancestral lesson was. Good intentions. Oh, that's not necessarily true. Sui Fon snorted coldly and suddenly disappeared from the place. The sharpest part of the fingertips brushed against Natsuki's eyebrows. Finally took action. Use Shunpo to close the distance, and then use Suzumaki to stab the vital point between the eyebrows. However, Natsuki sidestepped and avoided it. Everything happened in a short moment. It seemed like they happened at the same time in no particular order. There is no point in reacting quickly. Sui Fon got stuck and struck suddenly in the blink of an eye of Natsuki. Reiatsu's sense that he could rely on was no advantage against the superb assassination skills of stealth maneuver. In fact, the blow missed. Sui Fon himself was surprised. But accidents are accidents. People who are good at assassinations and sneak attacks are also best at dealing with unexpected situations. If you miss a hit, just hit it again. Rather than attacking in secret, Sui Fon assassinated Grandmaster head-on. He immediately raised his foot and kicked Natsuki in the abdomen. Blind vision, confusing Reiatsu perception. There are as many ways as possible to take advantage of assassination. Who said that a ninja standing in the sun is not a ninja, and an honest assassination is not an assassination? 58th Palm Storm. Advertise here. Boom. Despite Sui Feng's petite size, with the support of Reiatsu, his physical ability is really strong. This kick hit Natsuki firmly in the abdomen. The air crackled, but Natsuki didn't fly out as she thought, and her spine didn't even bend at all. Instead, Sui Feng himself was ejected. It's like kicking your legs in place and taking off. Thanks to Sui Feng's quick reaction, he grabbed the chains on both sides of the overpass, turned over like a bird and landed on the slender chains. He stabilized his body and looked at Natsuki. But the first thing that catches the eye is the enlarged soul. Sui Feng's pupils shrank, and without hesitation he let go and leaned back to avoid Natsuki's kick, and then relied on his feet to hook the rope and violently turned over. As expected, Natsuki was just as quick to change her moves as she was, and would switch to a split kick if she missed. When this kick landed, it was as powerful and heavy as a battle axe without losing its penetrating power. More than just rope, a section of the overpass road was wiped away out of thin air, like a simple and rough touch on an ink painting that was not yet dry. It was interrupted, divided into 2 parts and flung downwards on both sides according to gravity. Natsuki and Sui Feng were on one side, their eyes intersecting in the air, creating invisible sparks. The next second, a real spark appeared. As if they were using their sight to teleport their bodies to the point of sight, the two collided fiercely again in an instant. This time Sui Feng saw Natsuki's trick clearly. It was a golden light. Wrapped around the fist. The sharp blade of Suzumaki is not strong enough to cut through the skin, and can only scatter a large amount of sparks. Some kind of defensive Kido. I'm afraid I also used this method to resist my own kicking skills just now. A little tricky. The ability of Suzumaki is almost useless. You have to find a way to tear off this protective film so that the B-pattern flower can be imprinted on the opponent's body, so that you can take the initiative. So in order to find the flaw in the golden light spell, Sui Feng spared no effort to cast Shunpo, and his movements became increasingly unpredictable. Separating a large number of afterimages and launching attacks from all angles, it is no longer limited to the sharp blade of Suzumaki, and every hard part of the body can be used as a weapon. If Natsuki were asked to describe it in one word, then he could only think of storm. Sui Feng's offensive is not only intensive, but also extremely fast. It's just a high-frequency but weak attack, it's just a heavy rain, so what if you're soaked in a miserable state? But the frequency is so high that it is like a gust of wind, pervasive, and the wind speed is extremely fast and powerful, which will undoubtedly form a storm. For a moment, Natsuki had the illusion of being in the center of a tornado. It is said that the eye of the storm is the safest, but only if the eye of the storm can accommodate people. If it is too small, the extra part will come into contact with the flowing air, and then flesh and blood will fly everywhere. Lowered from the overpass to the ground. In just a few seconds, Natsuki withstood thousands of attacks. He only took 2/3 of it, and the other third was resisted by the golden light curse. Although some of the latter are deliberately showing off flaws, most of them are because they cannot be guarded against. Natsuki had to admit that his white hits skills were far behind Soi Fon. Not to mention, Shunpo. There is no Annihilation and word spirit moment to help cover it up. Combining only basic physical abilities with Shunpo and explosive heart liberation fist, the shortcomings of lack of purity were immediately exposed. Physical ability and Reiatsu are the same. Mobility is 4 to 6. White hits are 3 to 7. Faced with this result, Natsuki was not disappointed. He had expected this, but the gap between white hits was larger than expected. This is because the person he was comparing to was Yoruichi. And Soi Fon is stronger than Yoruichi. Not surprising when you think about it. Yoruichi, who has been out of work for more than 100 years, has never had much contact with anyone. He has been living leisurely like a black cat. Most of the time he actually spent on training was spent on Schwanko. His physical fitness can probably still be maintained without declining, but his combat skills and awareness have long been rusty. On the other hand, Soi Fon has worked hard to hone her skills for hundreds of years. As the controller of stealth maneuver and the captain of the 2nd Division, whether it is light or shadow, she is an active battlefield, with many opportunities for actual combat. It's been a long time. Gradually, not only Yoruichi surpassed him. And it's beyond Yoruichi's peak. This was the case in the original time and space. When the two sides fought, Yoruichi was always at a disadvantage. In the end, Yoruichi turned defeat into victory with the more complete Shuangju. Now Natsuki has stepped in. I'm afraid the gap between her and Yoruichi will widen further. Originally one was 100 and the other was 95. It would be slightly better in a real fight. If instant Coax is added, Soi Fon plus 20, plus 30%. So Yoruichi becomes 125, and Soi Fon is 120. The situation is reversed. But Natsuki now feels that Soi Fon is at least 105. Not only slightly better than Yi Chu, he was almost a head taller than her. Soi Fon himself noticed this. Therefore, he completely let go of his hands and feet and no longer deliberately retained his strength. His condition was visibly improving, and he even performed better than usual. Hitting back and hitting Natsuki with words. You must not have studied carefully when Yoruichi taught you, right? The foundation is too poor, too rough, and there are so many redundant movements that I can't even count them. Although even if you learn all her skills, it is still a backward technique in my eyes, but it is still better than your stupid moves that are so monotonous that I can see through them at a glance. What's the difference between relying too much on instinct and beasts? No matter how strong the fighting instinct of humans is, can they be stronger than beasts? If beasts can defeat humans by relying on instinct, then what's the use of intelligence and technology? It's okay to deal with ordinary people with just talent and talent, plus half-baked tricks, but it's absolutely impossible to defeat me. Although everything she said was about herself, Natsuki felt that behind every word she said there was resentment towards Yoruichi. You want to prove that you are better than Yoruichi and make her regret leaving you behind, right? Quote ? Quote. Natsuki's sudden rhetorical question caused Sui Feng's movements to show a trace of sluggishness that Nazao should have. Natsuki unceremoniously seized the flaw and punched his assistant to the point of death. Sui Feng flew backwards and landed on the house, smashing a lot of rubble. But Natsuki looked at Sui Feng, who was squatting on the ground holding her ribs, and knew that her punch had not had much impact on her. It's really amazing. After being disturbed by my words, you still reacted and gave me a kick. This distanced you and removed most of the impact. Otherwise, I would have made you vomit blood and fall to the ground with this punch. For Natsuki's praise, Sui Feng didn't have any joy in his lungs. On the contrary, she was filled with endless anger. Proof. I don't need to prove, I am already stronger than her. The only thing I can't let go of is that I didn't have the power to make her pay a sufficient price for her actions. But it's not too late, let's start with you first. Open your eyes and take a good look. This is a state that even Yoruichi has never reached. Instant Coax. Chapter 59. This is my Shunpo, Flying Thunder God technique. Advertise here. The high concentration of Kido Reiatsu instantly tore Sui Feng's death robbery outfit and Captain Haori into pieces, and the shoulders and back exposed to the air shone with a blazing white glow. The temperature was so high. Even the surrounding atmosphere was distorted. It took me 50 years to practice the ultimate intention that combines white hits and Kido, and another 30 years to master it. Its power is comparable to that of Bankai, and as the captain, I have naturally mastered Bankai. Quote. That is to say, in addition to Kido, I have reached the highest level in the three fields of slashing, boxing, and walking. Seeing me like this, Yoruichi should be more afraid than regretful. Sui Feng struck head-on with a true storm. Natsuki didn't dodge or dodge, and punched him. The fist wrapped in golden light and the fist wrapped in blazing white light collided with each other. It's like Mars hitting the Earth. Earth shattering. Except for the place where the two people stood, all the houses within 100 meters radius were completely destroyed by the high-temperature shock wave. Even the stone bricks on the ground were blown away, and the ground was dug up for 3 feet, leaving nothing but scorched earth. Sui Feng's eyes flashed, and he raised his foot to kick sideways. Natsuki tried to parry, and his reaction was not unpleasant. However, Sui Feng's foot stopped when he was about to hit, and he forcibly interrupted his movement. Immediately, he used clever steps to move behind Natsuki. After activating instant Coax, Sui Feng's speed was more than twice as fast as before. But Natsuki's 860, heartbreaking liberation fist, focuses on a non-delayed response. Sui Feng's deliberate backstab did not cause any harm. She didn't mean to cause any harm either. The reason for doing this is to fully mobilize Natsuki's instinctive reaction. The instinctive reaction will not lie. Only in this way can she be sure to break the golden light. I guess Yoruichi never told you what anti-ghost killing is. As he spoke, Sui Feng reached out with his left hand and reversed the golden light with Kido Reiatsu of the same mass, thus disintegrating this seemingly indestructible armor. Then the right hand connected seamlessly and used Suzumaki to penetrate Natsuki's back. He wanted to take advantage of the situation to attack the spine and tendons, but Natsuki's counterattack had already come. Sui Feng could only retreat. But her goal has been achieved. B. Wenhua. Natsuki could feel the strange feeling in her back. Although he couldn't see it, he knew that there was a black line on his back. Oh, it seems that Yoruichi has told you a lot of information. Also, since you want to invade Soul Society, you will inevitably have to deal with the most well-informed secret maneuver, so you ran into me early. W. The corners of Sui Feng's mouth curved into a beautiful smile, proving that she was in a good mood. But her information is also out of date. The B-pattern flower will not disappear, at least not before I remove Shikai. If you hit it a second time at the same position, you will die. And the probability that I can do this is 100%. Relying on instinct to fight will indeed give you a strong adaptability, but as long as my speed exceeds your nerve reflex speed, you will not be able to withstand it. After all, I have already integrated my skills into my bones and integrated them with my instincts. It is a more powerful and perfect instinct that is superior to you. In addition, I also forcefully change the movements to induce you to react quickly, and then enter your blind spot, so that you can react in time and your body cannot keep up. In addition, I have mastered your Reiatsu nature, and I can use anti-ghost killing to break down your defense at any time. The defeat has been decided. Stop struggling pointlessly. For the sake of Yoruichi taking care of me in the past, I will arrange a better cell for you. Natsuki didn't object. If his strength is only this, then everything Sui Feng said will be true. However, as long as the Annihilation eye is turned on, things like documents will be decomposed and absorbed in an instant. Natsuki plans to take action. You can't let yourself fall into danger easily just for free. Just when he was about to open his eyes, the prompt bar popped up, asking him to open his eyes in another sense. You are completely at a disadvantage when competing with the girl in front of you, but you are not frustrated because the training time gap between you is too big. Using your own shortcomings to challenge the other's strengths is naturally the result. You humbly absorb experience in battle, and you use a good attitude to get an opportunity for enlightenment. You chose Shunpo between Whitehits and Shunpo, not because you like Shunpo more, CFAD, but because the B-pattern flower behind it gave you enough inspiration. A flash of inspiration flashes in your mind, and you think of using the perfection technique to create a mark similar to the B-pattern flower, and then activate word spirit snap to pull yourself in front of the mark. This process can refer to the black cavity traveling through space. After all, there is no faster way to move than space jumping. And if you have personally experienced the black cavity and understand its nature transformation, you can use the golden light spell to simulate the opening of the black cavity, thereby breaking the space restriction. You spent countless brain cells and finally perfected the process. The first step is to control the material soul through physical contact and create the coordinates. The second step is to activate the golden light spell to simulate the opening of the black cavity. The third step is to activate the word spirit snap to speed up the opening of the black cavity and shorten the passage. The process of black cavity compresses the whole process to 0.0000.1 second. Since there will be a flash of golden light when activated, you named it Flying Thunder God Technique. A lot of information flows into your mind. Natsuki couldn't help but shudder. It feels as if the whole body is electrified, and there is another kind of memory in the muscles. Flying Thunder God Technique. Really good at naming names. The full expression technique is almost broken in the prompt bar. But Natsuki is happy to see the results. Sui Feng, I want to thank you. Sui Feng was slightly startled. Natsuki clenched his fists, assumed the wild attack stance of the heart-blasting liberation fist, and said calmly, because of you, I have become stronger again, and now I will be faster than you. I thought you were going to say something. You are stubborn, this kind of place is very similar to Yoruichi. Sui Feng sneered. The next moment, the figure flashed past. The shadows all stretched into a long line, as if they were about to tear apart the space. Howling, roar, ravaged, crush. After activating instant Coax, any movement caused by any action will be infinitely amplified. To her, everything on this land is petite and weak. Sui Feng repeated his old tricks. Compared to before, Natsuki only touched her shoulder a little more. This is also a matter of course. Some flaws are based on limits, and you can't prevent them even if you know them. It is the privilege of the strong to find these flaws and exploit them. But when Soi Fon was about to touch Natsuki's body, the latter suddenly disappeared from under her eyes, leaving only a little golden light, like pollen specially prepared for her, a bee. It was too abrupt. No signs of movement were captured. He even disappeared from Reiatsu's consciousness for a time. This inevitably caused Sui Feng's mind to go blank for a moment. As a result, she was unable to react, and was hit in the back of the head by Natsuki, who appeared above her. Her vision immediately went black, she lost consciousness, and fell to the ground with a thud. It seems that my white hits and Shunpo are better in the end. Natsuki dusted himself off with a satisfied expression on his face. I don't know how Sui Feng would feel after hearing his post-war summary. Chapter 62 Sen. Showdown, I am one of my own. A long time ago, there was a tribe. Because the adults died en masse, the unattended children starved to death in despair and turned into earthbound spirits. Without Shinigami to bury his soul, it will degenerate into nothingness over time. Reborn in every corner of the world. However, obsession drives every virtual creature to return to its former home. Speaking of which, I have to mention the origin of Manos Grande. The General Hollow desires to devour human souls in order to fill the void in his heart. But there are still a few who are extremely eager to devour souls and will devour their own kind. When they naturally gather and devour each other, it is the birth of Manos Grande. This principle also applies to these virtual groups returning home. Kion, who survived to the end, regained some of his rationality and realized how much of a mistake he had made. His heart became increasingly broken, and he began to wander around reality and Hueco Mundo, trying to find his companions who were swallowed by him. But that's just wasted effort. As time goes by, this virtual boy with the appearance of a boy first evolved to the lower level Manos Grande, and then to the intermediate level Manos Grande, regaining more rationality. Recognize the reality but can't let go of the obsession. So he turned his attention to the earthbound spirit child who was in a miserable situation. After they fell into the void, the boy shared his flesh and blood with them, thinking that this would fill their bellies, but he also lost the opportunity to be promoted to the superior Manos Grande. However, something incredible happened. These hollows who accepted his flesh and blood, actually gradually surpassed the subordinate Manos Grande, had the same power as him, and joined forces to make a big name in Hueco Mundo. Void King Baragan could not tolerate a restless mid-level Manos Grande group running around under his nose. It happened that Zael Aporo had a strong interest in their existence. The two hit it off and recruited this group of children into the Void Knight Palace. Later, a Shinigami came to Hueco Mundo and gave the Manos Grande new powers. These kids are among them. They were reborn by bathing in the strange light. Not only did they eliminate the hidden dangers in the past, they swallowed a large number of virtual beings in one go and evolved to the upper level Manos Grande. They were also given the number 2. In the eyes of the residents of Hueco Mundo, they are like army ants or locusts. Once you are targeted, you will be outplayed. Its name is the mischievous imp, Picaro. Picaro, who came to Soul Society from Hueco Mundo, has now found a new playmate. That's the captains of Gote 13. The reason is just that they are wearing props that meet the requirements of the game, so they have to find a way to get to the end. The first ones targeted were Kenpachi, Kuritsuchi Mayuri, Komamura, and Tusen Konami. Because the four of them happened to be together. Picaro agreed that this was a good opportunity to get 4 pieces of clothing at once and make a lot of money. He didn't even think about whether he would miss it and lose his life. If the Shinigami were asked to evaluate this kind of behavior, probably 90% of them would come to the conclusion that they were seeking death. But in fact, it was the 4 captains who were in a disadvantageous situation. It's so interesting, it's so interesting. These Reincarnated hollows can actually be so powerful, especially when they can liberate Zanpakuto. This is the first time I've heard of this. I must send them to the operating table for dissection. Let's see what kind of mystery is hidden behind this change. Kuritsuchi Mayuri's brain as a scientist is in a state of excitement. Desperately wanting to return to his own battlefield. Do you want Captain Yori? Then follow me back to the laboratory. I'll give you as much as you want. Real. Very good. Could it be biased? Has a weird face. I don't believe in ugly people. It hurts so much. Just now, I was hit to death by that doll with a terrible cry. Hee, I'm dead too. Very hungry. Clothes. Clothes. Different shapes and different personalities. Different reactions to the bait thrown by Kuritsuchi Mayuri. Some of them stopped, some of them struck harder, some of them started arguing, and some of them just rushed to take off Kuritsuchi Mayuri's clothes. It's a mess and makes people upset. Boom. The huge king of heavenly punishment fell. Komamura was half kneeling on the ground, his helmet already broken, revealing his dirty wolf head, which attracted a lot of shouts from Picaro, but he could only gasp and be unable to respond. Komamura. Upon seeing this, Tusen Konami immediately took off his haori and threw it into the sky, asking Picaro to give up the attack to ensure Komamura's safety. Take off the feathery fabric, quickly. Picaro is a child at heart. I won't hit people as soon as I come up. They have asked if they can hand over their clothes, but as the captain, how can they easily hand over an important symbol that represents the captain's identity? This is related to the honor and dignity of Gote 13. Komamura was the first to refuse. In addition, Kenpachi is afraid that the world will not be chaotic. A physical fight broke out. Of course, in Picaro's eyes, this was not considered arrogant and unreasonable, but rather regarded as the game's supposed difficulty, and his interest became even higher. Faced with the pressure brought by the four captains, he chose to liberate Zanpakuto, parody military wings. Grow transparent wings like locusts, crickets, or dragonflies. There is not much difference in appearance, but everyone's Reiatsu has increased significantly compared to before, and the collective strength has soared significantly. The King of Scourge summoned by Komamura was too big, and was bombarded by Picaro's Sero one after another. He couldn't dodge, and the armor was shattered by the explosions, and his body was covered with bruises. As the owner of the sword, Komamura also suffered. Kuretsuchi Mayuri's Golden Killer Saitagarba was not much smaller than the King of Heaven's punishment, and was also destroyed quickly. Only Tusen Kanami and Kenpachi were able to fight back. Especially the latter. Although the opponent is a child, it is not unacceptable as long as he is strong enough. Seeing Kenpachi's arrogant and mighty fighting, Komamura held his breath in his heart and refused to follow Picaro. No, no. This dress is the high hope placed on me by His Excellency Yuan Ryuji. Even if I die, I will destroy it before I die. I will never let it become a trophy of the enemy. Komamura's bad temper and Picaro's reckless behavior gave Tusen Kanami a huge headache. Although the creation of Arankar was part of Gote 13's plan, Picaro's sudden intrusion into Soul Society made him and others very passive. Please give me flowers. If I had known that taking Natsuki to Hueco Mundo would turn out like this, I should have persuaded Eisen-sama to change his mind. Picaro is here, Nelly is here, and Neutra is here. 3 Espada-class Arankars arrived at once. I almost thought the decisive battle had started early. It's too late to regret, now it's time to think about how to solve the problem. After all, it is a precious chess piece. Killing it here will not be beneficial to Master Aizen's plan, and it may not really be able to completely annihilate Picaro. Not an over-exaggeration. The 4 captains gathered together, and Kenpachi was a fighting maniac. He didn't attack lightly or hard. It was easy to kill several Picaros. However, Picaros had a special ability. They could transmit Reiatsu to each other through the communication mechanism, which could greatly enhance an individual anytime and anywhere, or the power of a small group of people. Even if it is fatally injured, it can be resurrected even if it retains its high-speed regeneration after Arankarization. Such tenacious vitality, coupled with equal combat effectiveness. Needless to say, we know how difficult it is to deal with. According to Kuretsuchi Mayuri's estimation, only 100 Picaros gathered together would have the destructive power equivalent to Byakuya Bankai, and now there are more than 600 Picaros out in force. In other words, the 4 captains at this time are basically equivalent to being surrounded by 6 Byakuya. This is the fundamental reason for the unfavorable situation. Kuretsuchi Mayuri and Komamura are both tightly restrained due to the similarity of their abilities. If Picaro hadn't been a little scrupulous about ruining his clothes, the 2 of them might have died long ago. Forget it, the matter is over, there is nothing to hide. Tusen Kanami was suddenly relieved. The path of justice must be accompanied by sacrifice, whether it is one's own or that of others. This land full of sin has given birth to beautiful things, but if you are reluctant to let go of these beautiful things, so you choose to give up digging up the deep-seated sin and cleansing this land, the world will never change. The evil arrogance will become more and more arrogant and difficult to eradicate. I'm sorry, Komamura. Tusen Kanami sighed lightly and sheathed the sword. Tusen. Komamura raised his head and looked at Tusen Kanami, who was walking towards the enemy as if to die. He was very confused, but what confused him even more was that the enemy did not hurt him. Is it because she abandoned Haori? No. Wrong. Picaro. As Espada General Officer, I order you to do your best to annihilate Zaraki Kenpachi, that man. Tusen Kanami's back is to Komamura, and although his face cannot be seen, it is not difficult to see from the way he raises his hand to point at Kenpachi that he should be calm and composed as a superior. There was not a trace of hostility among them. There is no hostility. No. Kashiwamura's eyes widened, and before he could speak, Kuretsuchi Mayuri sneered. I see. It seems that this incident has nothing to do with you. Can I still call you Captain Tusen now? The captain's position is just a stepping stone for me to achieve justice. Nirvana, your vision is too narrow. I have taken another step forward and become the embodiment of justice. I am qualified to insult those who accuse me. There are no people either. Chapter 61 Eisen. Showdown, I am innocent. Advertise here. Picaro looked at each other, a little embarrassed. Tusen was standing next to the adult who gave them power. They remembered his appearance and knew that there seemed to be such a position with the authority to control Espada. But now, is it more important to play or to be obedient? To solve this problem, Picaro even gave up on encircling Kenpachi, and more than 600 individuals gathered together for a chattering discussion, which was called an intense discussion. Seeing them like this, Tusen Kanami's face froze slightly. Huh, don't you want to fight? I just finished warming up. Kenpachi shouted in dissatisfaction. Looking at his appearance at this time combined with his words, people really disagree. All the wounds that were not neat enough collapsed. The blood dyed the bandage red and flowed all over the 890 body. If this can be considered a warm-up, then it is time to carefully consider the feasibility of the phrase, death is a new beginning. Tusen. Regarding Kuretsuchi Mayuri's views and Tusen Kanami's unusual words and deeds, Kashiwamura felt strong uneasiness in his heart and wanted to get a satisfactory answer from his friend. However, the truth often cannot satisfy everyone. Especially for those who are too deeply involved, the exposure of the truth will cause their hearts to be torn and they will suffer tremendous pain. Tusen turned around and was about to speak. Suddenly, there was a unique vibration in the air. Immediately afterwards, including him, everyone in the Seraiti who was fighting fiercely and had at least a vice-captain level Reiatsu heard a female voice with a heavy tone. Gote 13 Captain, Vice-Captain and Travelers. I am Eisen Naneo, the Deputy Captain of the 8th Division. I have important information to inform you. Please refrain from using weapons rashly for the time being. From a distance, the bipolar hill looked like a huge torch. The sea of fire spread from the top and burned all the woods. It's finally here. If Shao Shishu doesn't come, I will kneel down and beg for mercy. Hiraku and Jashiro, who were exhausted from the battle, finally smiled when they heard this voice, and dropped their swords in their hands. The old man opposite him also stopped and listened. As the deputy captain of Division 8, I guarantee that what I say next is the truth. At the foot of the two-pole hill, Neutra, who was returning to the sword, curled his lips with an expression of no interest at all. Not far away from him, Toshiro, who was leaning on his body with a knife and had reached his limit, looked very heavy. He had a bad feeling. On the other side, Ichigo and Byakuya were silently licking their wounds, ready to fight again at any time, but the sudden message calmed the atmosphere. Whose voice is this? Ichigo was puzzled. Byakuya frowned and looked at the sky, wondering whether he was explaining to Ichigo or simply mumbling to himself. Tente Kora, a Kido technique that captures multiple Reiatsu and transmits messages through the air. What on earth are the people of the 8th Division doing? Even the travel disaster is included in the communication target list. Half an hour ago, I was assigned by the captains of the 8th and 13th Divisions to go to Central 46 to investigate. I found that all the internal personnel were murdered, and Ichimaru Jin, the captain of the 3rd Division, was found at the scene. Quote. He learned from his mouth that he and others had killed Room 46 a month ago, then sealed Room 46, issued orders on his behalf, arrested and executed Rukia Kuchiki. All this was a huge conspiracy. The most fringe battlefield. Because Unohana Retsu brought Rukia along with him and held friendly negotiations with Naru, the vice-captains and a kind of chief officer were able to narrowly escape death. One by one, they sat slumped on the ground, listening to the news that kept coming to their ears, and the scene gradually fell into chaos. How could Captain Ichimaru? Ignoring the wary looks from her companions, Kira was completely stunned. Struggling, trying to get up to find Ichimaru Jin and question him about the truth. However, Hisagi and Kagura were forcibly holding him down. Although it was for the sake of his physical condition, it also had the implication of imprisonment. If what Eisen Naneo said is true, then as Ichimaru Jin's adjutant and theoretical confidant, Shuliang is also highly suspected of committing a crime. The wind howls in my ears. Plus there are people talking constantly. Sui Fon wakes up. When he opened his eyes, he found that he was being carried by the Yoruichi's parent and son, on his shoulders and being carried away quickly. You, who allowed you to touch me? Let me go. Sui Feng's first reaction was to use all his strength to break free, but he didn't know what happened. Every muscle in his body was weak and his spiritual power was almost exhausted. In addition to showing off his power, he also tried to find the hidden weapons on his body. But Natsuki soon dashed his hopes. Stop working so hard. I specially sucked your Reiatsu, and I searched all the places on your body where hidden weapons might be hidden. I didn't even spare your teeth and throat. Oh yes, I also helped you with the neurotoxins in your nails. Lost it. Question mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Quote. Sui Feng opened his eyes wide after hearing this, his body temperature began to soar, his skin gradually turned red, and his blood spread from his ankles to the top of his head, almost steaming up. I don't know if it's anger or shame. You. The silver teeth were almost broken. Sui Feng was trembling all over. When she thought that her tongue might have been touched, she couldn't even speak clearly. She felt as uncomfortable as ants crawling all over her body. She wished she could dig a hole on the spot and kill herself. It's really shameful to have an advantageous game overturned. Stop being you, and listen carefully to the information your colleagues have passed on to you. 2.6. You should be angry about this, not me. Sui Feng was startled by Natsuki's reminder. At this moment, she heard a shocking news. Captain Eisen Sosuke of the 5th Division. He was assassinated by an unknown person a month ago and was placed in the Pure Tower Julin for unknown reasons, where he slept until he was awakened by Eisen Naneo. Wait. A month ago. Sui Feng's pupils shrank and he no longer struggled. Looking at the scenery of houses that continued to retreat and go away, his thoughts also drifted away, and a question gradually formed in his mind. If Eisen was attacked a month ago and has been sleeping to this day, then, the Eisen who has appeared beside them this month and even attended the execution ceremony, and who is now in Shuangji Hill is, who? Chapter 62 Urahara. Showdown, it's all my fault. Advertise here. The Hill of Bipolar. Located in the center of Seraiti, next to the first team building. Standing on the edge of the cliff, you can see most of Seraiti. Not only tall, but also big enough. It allows people to show their fists and kicks to their heart's content. Can such an excellent platform be used only by criminals who need to be executed, and let them stand on top of it? Death is by no means a judgment to them. After all, Soul Society has not been qualified to judge others from the beginning. Therefore, a new order needs to be re-established. This order neither flaunts justice nor hates evil, but simply uses power to dominate everything in the world. Under strength, everyone is equal. This is the balance that the three realms need. Eisen's robes hunt and dance with the wind, staring at Seraites' unchanging scene for 110,000 years. Starting today, he will change everything. As the thoughts turned 1,000 times, the heat wave behind him subsided, and was replaced by a large amount of movement gathered here. When Eisen, who was standing on the edge of the cliff, turned around, many people appeared in front of him. Sean Laudo, Hiraku, Jashiro. 25 There is also Komamura who is chasing Tusen. Byakuya, Ichigo, Toshiro, Renji. Finally, there are Natsuki carrying Soi Fon, Unohana Retsu carrying Rukia, and individual vice captains Rangaku, Hisagi, and Hinamori Momo who strongly requested to accompany them. Surprisingly, Nanao and Yoruichi also came, remanding the tied-up Ichimaru Jin. Katetsu Kion and Katsubuki Sentaro from the 13th Division acted as stretchers, supporting a person and followed closely behind. It was also because of the appearance of this person that the atmosphere was filled with a chilling atmosphere. Two Captains Eisen. What the hell is going on? Hinamori Momo is confused. Can't figure out which one is true. Let me explain. Suddenly, a voice sounded out of thin air. A man with a terrifying face and extremely long nails appeared from the air, standing on both sides of Eisen with Tusen. The Eisen next to me, his real name is Kyoka Suigetsu. I guess the Captain Sama over there will understand. This sentence made everyone's eyes subconsciously focus on Old Man Sean. I remember you. Old Man Sean stared at the man and revealed his identity. You are Zanpakuto Muramasa of Kuchiki Shanghai. You have the ability to lead others to Zanpakuto betrayal. But your master died a long time ago. Why are you still alive? Muramasa put his hands in his pockets and said calmly, Shanghai is dead, but he was reborn in Hueco Mundo. In order to take revenge on Soul Society, which brought him endless humiliation and pain, he decided to do something. This shouldn't be difficult. Do you understand? I see. Hiraku's eyes flashed and he took over the words. So you attack Sosuke because his Zanpakuto ability is complete hypnosis. With its help, you can move freely within Seraiti. Then you instigated the rebellion of Tusen and Ichimaru, murdered the 46th chamber, and avenged your master. But I don't quite understand why you targeted little Rukia. Is it because your master, as the son-in-law of the Kuchiki family, was ruthlessly liquidated by the head of the Kuchiki family, Kuchiki Ginrei, so he took revenge? Even Byakuya himself didn't know much about these old events, but Kiraku explained them all in one sentence. This is the result of our mutual deliberations. It was Eisen who responded, although he was dubbed Kyoka Suigetsu by Muramasa. But Natsuki in the crowd would rather believe that he is the real Eisen, and the Eisen being supported by Yoruichi is the fake one. All of this is directed and acted by the real Eisen. However, Muramasa and Eisen were surprised that they got together. This act of revenge against Soul Society began as early as 110 years ago. Shihuin Yoruichi and Urahara Kazuki, who was not present, should have a deep understanding of this. It is a pity that it is not until today that you learned about the original frame up through my words. You guys, who is the real culprit who forced you to leave Soul Society? Eisen pushed up his glasses and showed a smile that seemed ironic to others. Indeed. Yoruichi nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, Kazuki and I had known for a long time that someone was up to something, but it happened too suddenly and we didn't have time to investigate, so we had to flee Soul Society quickly. But were you also involved in that incident? Certainly. Eisen's answer shocked everyone. In particular, the real Eisen who was being supported was even more furious. Joe asked. You were sentenced to me 110 years ago. There's nothing surprising about this. After all, I'm Kyoka Suigetsu. Deception is my essence. And you don't carry Zanpakuto with you all the time. There are always opportunities. Immediately, Eisen turned his attention to Rukia next to Unohana Retsu, and his smile was full of meaning. Because of this, I can continue to lurk beside the main body, cooperate with Muramasa and Kuchiki Hibiki behind him, and slowly accumulate strength, wait for the time to come. Earlier, in order to seek stronger power, after countless experiments, we accidentally created a substance called Hogyoku, which can break the boundaries between different races and possess incredible power. There is no way I can create a second one. I thought it would take a long time to grow it to suit my needs, but I didn't expect that after Urahara Kazuki left, I discovered from the research materials he left behind that he actually created a Hogyoku. Is there anything more coincidental than this in the world? From Eisen's description, it is not difficult for everyone to feel the joy. But it was an out-and-out surprise to him, but it was an out-and-out shock to everyone. That kind of substance that sounds extremely weird was actually born twice in such a weird way. Urahara also knew the horror of Hogyoku, so in order to destroy it 393, he created a spirit body that did not contain any spirit children while hiding in the world, and then created a normal spirit body based on this. There is a connection between the souls of these two spirits and they are tightly bound together. During the long-term relationship between the former and the latter's spiritual power will be suppressed until it eventually disappears completely. Urahara put his Hogyoku into the latter. When the latter's spirit sun completely disappears, the Hogyoku will also be completely hidden. Although it cannot be destroyed, it also eliminates the possibility of it harming the world. I have to say this is an excellent method, but he was afraid that one day we would find him, so he threw the two unsuspecting spirits into the Soul Society. On the other hand, he underestimated his own skills. Although they are artificial souls, they have stronger emotions than normal people. In a place like Rukongai, it is extremely difficult for a spirit body without spiritual power to survive with a baby who has spiritual power but no force. Thing. The spirit without spiritual power did not raise the baby according to his ideas and destroy her spiritual power in the process. Instead, he abandoned her and came to Rukongai, where the security was better. By chance, he met a noble meet and fall in love. Now that I think about it, Urahara may also think that whether the baby is deprived of spiritual power or dies, it is a good choice. Speaking of which, everyone should already know the true forms of those two spirit bodies. That's right, it's Kuchiki Hyjin and Rukia Kuchiki. Chapter 63 What is the Daughter of Destiny? Advertise here. Eisen's words were like a huge stone hitting the lake, causing huge waves in everyone's hearts. Rukia, one of the parties involved, was greatly shocked. Her body was shaking slightly and she had an expression of disbelief on her face. I am a transformed soul. You're wrong. How can Urahara Kazuki's technology be defined by just transforming souls? If pressed, it's more like a spirit version specially created to hide Hogyoku. Juki. I remember there was a similar existence beside Kuretsuchi Mayuri. Eisen seemed to be comforting with good intentions, but he attracted more glares from people. Among them, Byakuya's eyes are the most lethal. But the information Eisen revealed did help a lot. I just don't know why it's like this, it can't really be out of good intentions, right? There is no way that a guy who betrayed his master and got involved with the criminals who wanted revenge on Soul Society could be so naive. With this concern, Jashiro and Kiraku exchanged glances in private. Then, the former stood up. So, your ultimate goal in planning this execution is to extract Hogyoku from Kuchiki. The problem seems to be back to square one. Eisen said unhurriedly. There are two ways to remove Hogyoku. One is to use bipolar melting as the soul body of the shell. The second is to refer to Urahara's original process of implanting Hogyoku and deduce the method in reverse. Quote. No matter how many ways there are, you can't use them now. Yoruichi tried to pour cold water on him. Rukia has been rescued. Nor fell into the hands of the enemy. But having said that, Ichigo, Byakuya, and Renji still subconsciously adjusted their positions to block Unohana Retsu and Rukia behind them. Old Man Sean, Jingla, and Jashiro didn't move because they were already at the front. Your conspiracy has gone bankrupt, Kionjuba. Aiz Naneo held her glasses in her hands. She believed that she knew the truth best and believed that in this case, the other party had no possibility of coming back. Eisen glanced at her and reacted flatly. You came so quickly. It seems that you have already captured the silver, and then rushed to the vicinity of Shuangji Hill to activate Tian Ting Kong Luo. In order to arrive at the scene with evidence as soon as possible, and also in order not to alert the snake, you are very smart. Choice, but meaningless. After listening to what I just said, don't you feel a little emotional? Or, after you have been in high positions for a long time and are accustomed to the stable life in this world, do you really not realize what you have overlooked? Everyone frowned. Some felt that he was raising suspicions, while others were deep in thought. Rather than trusting him not to lie, they believed more in their own intuition. Because of his words, I smelled some kind of disobedience. Hey, don't let him lead you by the nose. Ichigo thought to no avail, and seeing the hesitant look on everyone's face, he suddenly became anxious. Calm down, Kurosaki. Natsuki and Soi Fon, facing Yoruichi, Naneo and others, stood on both sides of the large army. Maybe it's because I'm isolated, like an outsider, that my thinking becomes clearer and sharper. That guy was right, we did overlook a very important thing. We who come from this world don't know much about Soul Society, but there is one thing. He just said that Kuchiki abandoned his younger sister because he lacked enough power, so there is a problem. Natsuki's eyes were deep. The low-pitched tone sounded like gibbering in everyone's ears, arousing thoughts in their hearts and causing them to surge continuously. Among them, the expressions of a few older and wiser people changed slightly, as if they had already thought of the answer. How did Rukia Kuchiki grow up as a baby? Quote question mark exclamation mark quote. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Hiss. As soon as this answer came out, everyone had different reactions, but they all had one thing in common, that was fright. Yes, a baby who was forced to abandon actually grew up after being abandoned. Is there anything more ironic than this? The areas with the best security in Rukongai are not prosperous compared to Seraiti, let alone the remote areas, which are outright slums. All kinds of ugliness in human nature are common. Those who really want to live a peaceful life have long since run away. Even if those who remain are not extremely vicious, they are not very upright. Good people can't survive in that kind of place. The probability that a kind-hearted person would accidentally pick up Rukia and adopt her is ridiculously low, but no one adopts her. What does a baby with psychic powers eat and drink? It's still too early to survive independently. So even if it's not a kind person, someone must reach out and take over. Rukia. Renji subconsciously looked at Rukia. He and Rukia met in the 78th district of South Rukongai. At that time, Rukia was already an extremely strong and independent girl, but growing up in Inazuri, he had never heard of such a person before. One person. But he quickly became involved with them and lived together. It feels like everything happens naturally. Looking back carefully now, he found that he had indeed never heard Rukia talk about the experience before they met. No one asked, because everyone subconsciously thought that this was how Rukia came to Soul Society. After so many years, I have never doubted it. But that fake Eisen overturned all of this. I'm sorry Renji, it's not that I don't want to say it, but I have no memory of this at all. It's just that sometimes some pictures pop up in my mind, but they are blurry. I don't pay much attention to them. I think they might be remaining memories of life. Rukia hugged her arms tightly and collapsed on the ground. The whole person fell into a state of chaos. If you don't hold yourself tightly or sit on the ground, you will feel that you will be torn apart by the Uzumaki called truth, and you will no longer be able to exist in the world as Rukia Kuchiki. Seeing her like this, Renji clenched his fists and dug his nails into his flesh. It's a good thing you did, right? Ichigo was also very angry, and the tip of the Tensa Zangetsu was pointed directly at Eisen. You know all of this so clearly, it can't all be discovered through subsequent investigation. Although you are impulsive and reckless, you, a young man traveling in trouble, have very keen intuition. Why? The smile on Aizen's face became a little thicker. Byakuya Kuchiki over there might have noticed some clues. After Kuchiki Hejun passed away, he left a last wish asking him to find his sister and take good care of her. He also confessed that he had abandoned his sister in the past. So, why is she so sure that her sister is still alive? The reason is simple. The souls between them have always been connected. Byakuya Kuchiki didn't know this, but he also found Kuchiki Luki, Qian Lihao, Ya. Could he haven't you ever thought about this problem? I must have thought about it, but I didn't take it to heart. I thought it was the credit of Abarai-kun and others, so I took more care of him after he joined the team, and even appointed him as his vice-captain. It is precisely because of your self-righteous judgment that the only chance to discover the truth has been taken away from you. But it doesn't matter. Now I can tell you clearly. I raised Rukia Kuchiki, and her beautiful qualities are all the result of my training, because I am very curious about how Hayurihara's works can grow through my hands. Of course, I found her under the guidance of Hogyoku, so I will not forget to take out the Hogyoku from her body. 11. Eisen looked around at the crowd, as if appreciating their wonderful reactions that gradually turned into shock and embarrassment. That's why she lost her memory. In other words, Yurihara Kazuki's Hogyoku had already fallen into my hands before she met Abarai-kun.